The Alpha King's hands trembled as he cradled her broken body, his wolf howling a sound so primal that windows shattered 3 blocks away. And even in her fading consciousness, Lyra knew that by sunrise, the city would run red with vengeance, because no one, not even the gods themselves, could survive what he would unleash upon whoever had left his mate bleeding in an alley like discarded trash. Wait, before the next revelation unfolds. If this mystery has already captivated you, let us know where you're following this story from. To ensure you don't miss unexpected claims, broken bonds, or awakenings under the moon, subscribe and stay close. Now, back to the scene. Who did this to you? His voice cracked on the last word, and Lyra had never heard the mighty Caspian Thorn sound anything less than absolute. His silver eyes blazed in the darkness, but his touch remained impossibly gentle as he brushed matted hair from her swollen face. She tried to speak, tasted copper, felt her split lip tear wider. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The words came out strangled. You're dying in my arms, and you think it doesn't matter? Lyra wanted to laugh, but her ribs screamed in protest. Of course it mattered. Everything mattered when you were nobody and he was everything. When you'd spent 3 years serving drinks in the pack house, invisible to everyone except the cruel ones who noticed you were weak, wolfless, worthless. When the Alpha King himself had walked past you 1,000 times without ever seeing your face. Until tonight. Please, she whispered, though she didn't know what she was begging for. Death would be easier. She'd accepted that the moment Garrett's boot had connected with her stomach for the 5th time, when his friends had laughed and placed bets on how long the runt would last. Caspian's arms tightened around her, and she felt something impossible, a tear landing on her cheek, hot and foreign. I need names, little one. Her light. Her light. As if she'd ever had any. The world tilted as he lifted her, moving with supernatural speed through streets she barely recognized. The pack hospital, probably, where they'd patch her up just enough to survive, then send her back to the servant quarters with a warning to be more careful, to know her place. But Caspian didn't take her to the hospital. He carried her through the private entrance of the Alpha Mansion, up marble stairs she'd only ever cleaned, into chambers that smelled of sandalwood and power and him. "Sir, you can't." A healer appeared, eyes widening. "She's not." "Save her." 2 words, spoken with enough command that the healer's protest died unspoken. "Save her, or I'll find someone who can." Lyra drifted in and out as hands moved over her, magic warming her skin, bones grinding back into place with sickening pops. She heard voices arguing in hushed tones, heard someone say internal bleeding, and someone else say wolfless like it was a death sentence. Maybe it was. When she woke, moonlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, and Caspian sat in a chair beside the bed, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. He looked like he'd aged a decade. "You stayed." Her voice came out rough, barely recognizable. His head snapped up, and the relief that flooded his features did something strange to her chest. "Of course I stayed. Why?" The question hung between them, heavy with 3 years of invisible servitude, of silent suffering, of being the girl no one saw, of being so far beneath his notice that they'd existed in the same space without ever truly meeting. Caspian moved to the bed, sat on the edge with careful precision, like he was afraid she'd shatter. "The moment I touched you in that alley, something in me recognized something in you. My wolf," he stopped, jaw clenching. "My wolf has been restless for months, searching. I thought I was losing my mind. And then I found you bleeding in the dark, and suddenly everything made sense." Lyra's breath caught. No, that wasn't possible. You're my mate, Lyra. 3 words that should have been a dream. 3 words that felt like a nightmare. You don't know my name. It came out flat, hollow. I didn't, he admitted, and the shame in his voice was palpable. I should have. I walked past you every day and never truly saw you. That ends now. She turned her face away, tears burning tracks down her bruised cheeks. You can reject me. It's fine. I know what I am. The growl that rumbled from his chest shook the bed frame. Look at me. She didn't want to, couldn't bear to see pity or duty or whatever emotion made Alpha Kings pretend to care about broken Omega servants. Lyra, look at me. Something in his tone compelled obedience, and she hated herself for it. Hated that even now, beaten and hollow, she responded to his dominance like every other weak thing in his territory. But when their eyes met, she didn't see pity. She saw rage, cold and calculating and absolutely terrifying. I will never reject you, he said, each word deliberate. And before the sun rises, every man who touched you will beg for death. I'm going to give you a choice, little mate. You can tell me their names, or I can tear apart this city until I find them. Either way, they're already dead. The only question is how much collateral damage you want on your conscience. You can't. They're pack members. Garrett is Beta Simmons' son. I don't care if he's the moon goddess's favorite child. Caspian's hand cupped her jaw with devastating gentleness, thumb brushing under her eye. You are mine. Mine to protect, mine to cherish. And I failed you. I failed you every single day for 3 years because I was too blind, too arrogant, too focused on politics and borders and power to see the treasure living under my own roof. The words should have felt good. Should have filled some empty space inside her that had always ached for recognition, for worth, for someone to finally see her. Instead, they terrified her. They'll kill me, she whispered. You might be the Alpha King, but there are lines even you can't cross. Garrett and his friends, they're connected, powerful families, and I'm nothing. You're everything. He said it so simply, like it was fact rather than fantasy. And I'm about to show this entire pack what happens when they mistake my mercy for weakness. He stood, and the movement was fluid, predatory. The man who'd held her with such tenderness vanished, replaced by something ancient and merciless. Rest, he said, heal, and when you wake, you'll be living in a very different world. The door closed behind him with ominous finality. Lyra stared at the ceiling, her body aching despite the healing magic, her mind racing. She should feel relief, safety. She'd been saved by the Alpha King himself, claimed as his mate, a fairy tale ending to a nightmare existence. But she'd lived in this pack long enough to know that fairy tales didn't exist for girls like her, and she'd seen enough of Garrett's cruelty to know he wouldn't go quietly into whatever vengeance Caspian planned. Sleep came eventually, dragging her under with chemical heaviness that suggested the healer had dosed her water. She dreamed of blood and moonlight, of silver eyes watching her from shadows, of a wolf so massive its howl could crack the sky. When she woke, the sun was streaming through the windows, and the city beyond was eerily silent. A female servant, one who'd never bothered to learn Lyra's name in 3 years, stood at the door with a tray of food, eyes downcast. The Alpha King requests your presence for breakfast, miss. He's waiting on the terrace. Miss? Not runt or wolfless or the usual casual dismissals. The shift in deference was jarring. I don't have anything to wear. Lyra gestured to her torn, blood-stained clothes from the night before. The servant practically sprinted to the massive wardrobe, pulling out a dress that probably cost more than Lyra had earned in her entire life. "He had these brought in for you. Everything in here is yours now." Yours. The word felt foreign. Lyra dressed slowly, her body protesting every movement despite the healing. The dress fit perfectly, soft gray that somehow made her hazel eyes look striking rather than plain. Someone had thought about what would suit her. Someone had cared enough to choose carefully. The terrace overlooked the city center, and what Lyra saw made her stomach drop. The Pack Square, usually bustling with morning activity, was filled with people. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all standing in absolute silence. At the center, on a raised platform that definitely hadn't existed yesterday, stood Caspian. And kneeling before him, hands bound, faces already bloodied, were Garrett and his 3 friends. "No," Lyra breathed. "No, no." "You're awake." Caspian's voice came from behind her, and she spun to find him standing in the terrace doorway. He looked immaculate in formal black, every inch the Alpha King, but his eyes were still soft when they landed on her. "How do you feel?" "What are you doing?" "Justice." He moved to stand beside her, gaze shifting to the square below. "I told you I'd show the pack what happens when they hurt what's mine. This will destroy you." She grabbed his arm, desperate. "They'll call it tyranny, abuse of power. You can't execute pack members without a trial, without—" "I had a trial." His voice was calm, almost gentle. "It lasted 3 hours. Started the moment I left your side last night. I brought in every witness, every person who'd ever seen you hurt, dismissed, degraded. Do you know what I learned, little mate?" She shook her head, tears already forming. "That you've been suffering for 3 years. That Garrett and his friends have been using you as their personal entertainment. That they've beaten you, humiliated you, stolen your food, destroyed your belongings. That last night wasn't an isolated incident. It was simply the first time they went too far." His jaw clenched. "And that every single person in this pack knew, including my beta, including my council. And no one said a word. Because I'm nobody? Because they're cowards." The words cracked like a whip. "Because this pack has become complacent, cruel, rotten from the inside. Because I was so busy building an empire that I forgot to protect my own people. The weak ones, the vulnerable ones. You." He turned to face her fully, and the raw emotion in his expression stole her breath. "I called this assembly to show the pack that the old ways are dead, that there are no more invisible people, no more acceptable victims, that every life in my territory has value, from the strongest alpha to the wolfless omega. They'll hate you for this. Let them." He cupped her face in both hands. "Let them hate me for putting you first. Let them rage and plot and whisper about the king who chose his mate over pack politics. I don't care. I failed you once. I won't do it again." A horn sounded below, deep and resonant. The execution horn. "Don't watch," Caspian said softly. "You don't need to see this." But Lyra couldn't look away as he descended to the square, as the crowd parted before him like water, as he stood before the 4 males who'd made her life hell. His voice carried even to the terrace, amplified by Alpha Command. "Garrett Simmons, Marcus Kane, Derek Frost, and Tyler Ash. You have been found guilty of assault, attempted murder, and crimes against your packmate. Your families have pleaded for mercy. They've offered tribute, alliances, anything to spare your lives." Garrett's father, Beta Simmons, stood in the front row, face pale but defiant. "She's wolfless, my king. Barely pack at all." "My son made a mistake, but the punishment you're proposing is exactly what your son deserves." Caspian's voice dropped to something deadly. Because Lyra isn't just Pac, she's my mate. And you all knew. You knew she was suffering, and you did nothing. So this execution isn't just about these four. It's about every single person who stood by and let evil flourish because the victim seemed insignificant. The silence that followed was absolute. "I'm giving each of you a choice," Caspian continued, addressing the bound males. "A quick death now or banishment. Exile from every Pac territory in North America. Rogues hunted alone. Considering what you did to Lyra, considering you beat her for sport while she screamed for mercy, I'm offering more kindness than you deserve." "I'll take exile," Garrett spat, blood on his teeth. "And one day I'll come back for what's mine." The temperature dropped. Caspian moved so fast, Lyra almost missed it. One moment standing apart, the next with his hand around Garrett's throat, lifting him off the ground. "She was never yours. She is mine. My mate, my queen. And the fact that you think you have any claim—" He stopped, visibly restraining his wolf. When he set Garrett down, it was with frightening control. "Exile it is, for all of you. You have until sunset to leave Pac lands. If you're seen within 100 miles of this territory after that, I'll kill you myself, slowly." He released them, and guards pulled the four males away, their families' protests rising in desperate chaos. Caspian turned to face the assembled Pac, and his next words rang with absolute authority. "From this day forward, any Pac member who witnesses abuse and stays silent is complicit. Any Pac member who harms the vulnerable will face the same fate as these four. And any Pac member who questions my choice of mate," his eyes swept the crowd, cold and merciless, "can join them in exile. This is not a democracy. This is a kingdom, and I choose her." When he returned to the terrace, Lyra was shaking. He pulled her into his arms without a word, and she let herself break against his chest, sobbing for the girl she'd been, for the justice that felt too big and too late, for the impossible reality that someone finally cared. "I'm sorry," she gasped between tears. "I'm sorry you had to do that. I'm sorry I'm causing problems." "Stop." He tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. "The only thing you should be sorry for is that you suffered alone for so long, that you didn't tell anyone, didn't ask for help. No one would have listened." The truth of it hung between them, bitter and undeniable. "I'm listening now," he said quietly. "I'm seeing you now. And I know that doesn't erase 3 years of pain, doesn't make up for my blindness. But I'm here, Lyra, and I'm not going anywhere." She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this moment was real, that she wasn't still bleeding in an alley, hallucinating salvation as her life drained away. Why me? The question escaped before she could stop it. You could have any mate, someone powerful, someone with a wolf, someone worthy of— You think the mate bond is about worth? He looked genuinely stunned. You think the moon goddess matches souls based on Pac politics and bloodlines? Lyra, I've spent 30 years searching for you, 30 years feeling incomplete. And the moment I touched you, everything clicked into place. You're not my mate because you're convenient or acceptable. You're my mate because my soul recognized its other half. I don't have a wolf. It came out broken. I'll never be able to shift, never be able to run with you under the moon, never. I don't care. He said it so fiercely that she flinched. I don't care if you never shift. I don't care if you're Omega or Alpha or completely human. You're mine. That's all that matters. Your Pac will never accept. My pack will adjust or they'll leave. I'm not sacrificing you for their comfort." The conviction in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it terrified her, because she'd seen what happened to alpha kings who put personal desires above pack stability. History was littered with fallen dynasties, with rulers who'd been overthrown for choosing wrong. "Come," Caspian said, apparently reading her spiraling thoughts. "Let me show you something." He led her through the mansion to a wing she'd never entered, forbidden territory for servants. The hallway ended at ornate double doors that opened onto a massive library, walls lined floor to ceiling with books, afternoon light streaming through stained glass windows. "This was my mother's sanctuary," he said quietly. "She died when I was 10, cancer, before I was old enough to try healing her with alpha power. This room has been locked ever since." Lyra moved through the space with reverence, trailing fingers along leather spines, breathing in the scent of old paper and memories. "She was human," Caspian continued. "No wolf. Couldn't shift. The pack elders fought my father's choice of mate for years, called it weakness, said their children would be cursed." Lyra turned to face him, heart pounding. "And were you?" A sad smile. "I was blessed with a mother who taught me that strength isn't about claws and fangs. It's about courage and compassion and standing up for those who can't defend themselves. She was the strongest person I've ever known. And when she died, this pack mourned her more deeply than any alpha before or since. Because she saw them, really saw them. The way I should have seen you." He crossed to a portrait above the fireplace, a beautiful woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile, standing beside a stern-looking alpha male. They said she wasn't worthy of him, that should weaken the bloodline. But my father loved her until his dying breath. And when he passed, he told me the secret to being a good king. Find someone who makes you want to be better than you are. Someone who reminds you why power matters, not for its own sake, but for what you can protect with it. Lyra's throat tightened. I can't be that person. I can't even protect myself." "You survived 3 years of abuse without breaking. You never lashed out, never became cruel in return. You kept your humanity in a place designed to strip it away." He moved closer, each step deliberate. "You're the strongest person I've ever met. You just don't see it yet. I see a victim. I see a survivor." He stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "I see a woman who's about to become the most powerful female in pack territory. And I see the person who's going to help me rebuild this place into something worth ruling." The weight of expectation settled on her shoulders like a physical thing. "I don't know how to be a queen. Good thing you have a lifetime to learn." His smile was soft, almost boyish. "And good thing you have a mate who's terrified of screwing this up just as much as you are." "You? Terrified?" "Absolutely." He reached for her hand and she let him take it. "I'm terrified of hurting you, terrified of failing you the way I already did. Terrified that one day you'll wake up and realize you deserved better than a blind fool who let you suffer under his own roof." The vulnerability in his admission cracked something open inside her. This wasn't just the Alpha King speaking. This was Caspian, a man, a wolf, a soul as scarred and uncertain as her own. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "I don't know how to be seen, how to matter, how to trust that this is real." "Then we'll figure it out together." He raised her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her scraped knuckles. "One day at a time, one moment at a time. No expectations, no pressure, just us." The word felt foreign and wonderful and terrifying all at once. Over the following days, Lyra learned what it meant to be the Alpha King's mate and discovered It was nothing like she'd imagined. Caspian didn't keep her locked in the mansion like a treasure to be guarded. Instead, he brought her everywhere. Council meetings where she sat silent and overwhelmed while alphas decades older debated territory disputes. Training sessions where young wolves sparred and gawked at the wolfless girl who'd somehow captured their king's heart. Pack dinners where hostile stares gradually shifted to curious glances to tentative acceptance. "They're waiting for you to fail," Lyra said one evening, curled up in the library that had become her refuge. "Waiting for proof that you made a mistake." Caspian looked up from the reports he'd been reviewing, eyes finding her across the room. "Let them wait. They'll be disappointed. You have too much faith in me. I have exactly the right amount." He set aside his work, patted his lap, in invitation. When she hesitated, he added, "Please, I've been drowning in politics all day. I need my mate." The casual possessiveness in his tone still made her shiver. She crossed to him, let him pull her down into his arms, breathed in his scent, pine and rainfall, and something uniquely him. "Tell me about your day," he murmured against her hair. "I met with the pack doctor. She wants to run more tests, see if there's a reason I never shifted." Lyra paused. She was kind about it, didn't make me feel broken. "Because you're not broken. I'm different. That's close enough in this world." His arms tightened around her. "Different is good. Different is necessary. This pack has been breeding for power and dominance for so long, they've forgotten diversity, not weaker." Lyra twisted to look up at him. "You really believe that?" "I do." His hand came up to cup her cheek, thumb brushing her lower lip. "And I'm going to spend the rest of our lives proving it to you." The heat in his gaze made her breath catch. They'd been careful with each other. Gentle touches, chaste kisses, nothing that might push too hard too fast. But the mate bond hummed between them constantly, a living thing that wanted more, demanded more. "Caspian," she breathed, and wasn't sure if it was a warning or a plea. He groaned softly, resting his forehead against hers. "Tell me to stop, and I will. Tell me you're not ready, and I'll wait forever. But Lyra, I need you to know. I'm barely holding on here. My wolf is going insane. And—" he stopped, jaw clenching. "I want you. Not just the bond. You. Your laugh, your thoughts, your terrible habit of chewing your lip when you're nervous. I want all of it." "I'm scared," she admitted. "What if I disappoint you? What if the bond is wrong? What if—" He silenced her with a kiss that was nothing like the careful pecks they'd shared before. This was claiming, consuming, a promise of exactly how much he wanted her. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "The bond isn't wrong," he said roughly, "and you could never disappoint me. But we don't have to rush. We can take this as slow as you need." Lyra studied his face, the sharp angles, the silver eyes that saw too much, the mouth that could command armies or whisper her name like a prayer. And she realized something fundamental. She'd been waiting her whole life to be wanted, truly wanted, not as a servant or a victim or a project, but as a person, as a woman, as a mate. "I don't want slow," she heard herself say. "I want to feel alive. I want to feel chosen. I want—" her voice dropped to a whisper. "I want you." The growl that rumbled through his chest was pure wolf. He stood with her in his arms, moving with supernatural speed through corridors to his private chambers. No, their chambers now. The door locked behind them with a decisive click. "Last chance to change your mind," he said, setting her down gently on the massive bed. "Once we do this, I'm never letting you go." "Promise?" The word came out breathy, nervous, thrilled. His smile was pure predator. "Oh, little mate, that's a promise written in starlight and sealed in forever." What followed was a claiming in every sense of the word, tender and fierce, patient and desperate, a merging of souls that went beyond physical pleasure into something transcendent. And when Caspian finally marked her, teeth sinking into the junction of her neck and shoulder, Lyra felt something shift in her core. Power flooded her veins, ancient and wild. Her back arched, and for one impossible moment, she felt a presence stirring inside her, something dormant awakening, responding to the mate bond, to the alpha's claim, to the recognition that she was no longer alone. "Caspian," she gasped, "something's happening. I know." His voice was awed. "The bond. It's triggering something. Your wolf." "I don't have a wolf." "You do." He pulled back to look at her, eyes wide with wonder. "You've always had one." She was just sleeping, waiting for the right catalyst, waiting for me. Lyra felt tears streaming down her face as the presence inside her grew stronger, more defined. Not a full shift. She didn't know if she'd ever achieve that, but undeniable proof that she wasn't broken, wasn't defective, wasn't less than. "Hello, little wolf," Caspian whispered against her lips. "Welcome home." They stayed tangled together until dawn, learning each other's bodies, mapping scars and secrets, building a foundation that had nothing to do with pack politics and everything to do with two people choosing each other against impossible odds. When Lyra finally drifted to sleep, safe in her mate's arms, she dreamed of moonlight and running, 4 paws carrying her through forests that had always been closed to her, a massive silver wolf running beside her, and the absolute certainty that she'd found where she belonged. But peace, as always, was temporary. The attack came 3 weeks later. Lyra was in the gardens, attempting to learn the names of various medicinal plants from the elderly pack healer when screams erupted from the eastern border. Caspian appeared within seconds, pulling her behind him as his eyes scanned for threats. "Get her inside," he barked at his guards. "Full lockdown, now." "What's happening?" Lyra demanded, resisting the hands that tried to drag her towards safety. "Rogues," his voice was grim. "A lot of them." "Rogues don't attack pack territory in broad daylight, not in these numbers." He turned to look at her, and she saw fear flicker across his face, not for himself, but for her. "These aren't random rogues. This is organized. This is revenge," she finished, stomach dropping. "For the exiles." They both knew it was true. Garrett and his friends had 3 weeks to stew in rage, to recruit other outcasts and criminals, to plan their retaliation. And they'd chosen the most vulnerable time. Midday, when most warriors were on border patrol, when the pack was scattered across territory, when the new queen was exposed in the gardens. "I need you safe," Caspian said, cupping her face. "Please, Lyra, let me fight without worrying about you." She wanted to argue, wanted to prove she could be useful, but she saw the desperation in his eyes and nodded. "Okay, but you come back to me. That's non-negotiable." His kiss was brief but searing. Always. Then he was gone, shifting mid-run into his massive alpha form, silver fur gleaming as he launched toward the sounds of battle. The guards rushed Lyra to the reinforced safe room deep in the mansion's core. She could hear fighting above, snarls, screams, the distinctive crack of bones breaking. Other pack members huddled in the space with her, mothers clutching children, elderly wolves whose fighting days were long past. "This is your fault," a female voice hissed, one of the council members' daughters, face twisted with hate. "They came for you. They're dying because of you." Lyra wanted to deny it, but couldn't. Because it was true. Garrett had come back for revenge, and innocent people were paying the price. "If I go out there," she said quietly, "if I surrender myself, they'll kill you." The head guard, a grizzled warrior named Marcus, shook his head. "And then they'll kill the Alpha King when he loses his mind over losing his mate. And then this pack will fall into chaos. So no, my queen, you stay here. You stay alive. That's your duty now. My queen. The title still felt foreign, but she heard the truth beneath it. She wasn't just Lyra anymore. She was a symbol, a weakness, a target. Her choices affected hundreds of lives. The fighting seemed to last hours, but was probably only minutes. Finally, silence fell, absolute and eerie. "Stay here," Marcus ordered. "I'll check." The door exploded inward. Garrett stood in the opening, covered in blood that clearly wasn't all his own, eyes wild with rogue madness. "Hello, pet," Garrett purred, and the sound made Lyra's skin crawl. "Miss me?" Marcus moved to block him, but Garrett was faster. One swipe of clawed hands and the loyal guard went down, throat torn open, dying before he hit the floor. Screams erupted. People scrambled for the back exit, but Garrett's companions blocked it, herding everyone like sheep. "I don't want them," Garrett said, eyes locked on Lyra. "I just want what's mine. The little whore who thought she could trade up, who thought spreading her legs for the Alpha King would save her." Rage flooded Lyra, hot and righteous and completely foreign. For 3 years, she'd endured his abuse in silence, had accepted that she deserved it somehow, that she was too weak to fight back. But she wasn't that girl anymore. "I was never yours," she said clearly, stepping forward despite every instinct screaming to run. "I was never anyone's property. I was a person you brutalized because it made you feel strong, because you're a coward who only feels powerful when he's hurting someone weaker." Garrett's face contorted. "Big words now that you have a protector? But he's not here, is he? Too busy being king to notice his precious mate was vulnerable? Hell will kill you for this. Probably." Garrett smiled, showing too many teeth. "But first, I'm going to make sure he finds you the way I found you in that alley, broken, bleeding, and begging for death. And maybe this time, no one will save you." He lunged. Lyra didn't think, didn't plan, just felt that stirring presence inside her, the wolf that had been sleeping, that had started to wake, and called to her. "Help me." The shift hit like lightning, agonizing and ecstatic, bones reforming, skin sprouting fur, senses exploding into hyperdrive. She'd never shifted before, didn't know how, but her wolf knew. Her wolf had been waiting for this exact moment. When Garrett's claws met her body, they met wolf. Smaller than most, gray-silver like moonlight, but real, undeniably real. The shock on his face would have been comical if he wasn't currently trying to kill her. They collided in a tangle of fangs and fury. Lyra fought on pure instinct, her wolf feral with the need to protect herself and the pack members cowering behind her. She was untrained, uncoordinated, definitely losing, but she was fighting. For the first time in her life, she was fighting back. Garrett's teeth found her shoulder, tore through fur and muscle. Pain exploded white-hot, but she twisted, managed to rake claws across his face. Blood sprayed. He howled, threw her across the room into the wall. Stars burst across her vision. Her wolf whimpered, struggling to rise. Garrett stalked closer, murder in his eyes. "You want to play alpha?" he snarled. "Let me show you what real power looks like." He raised a paw for the killing blow. And suddenly, he was flying backward, a silver blur slamming into him with the force of a freight train. Caspian's alpha form was magnificent and terrible, twice Garrett's size, radiating lethal rage. Head torn through rogues to get here, through anyone and anything between him and his mate, and now his focus narrowed to the wolf who dared touch her. The fight that followed wasn't really a fight, it was an execution. Garrett tried to run, but Caspian was faster, tried to beg, but Caspian was beyond reason. In less than a minute, it was over. Garrett's body limp, neck broken, threat eliminated with ruthless efficiency. Then Caspian was shifting back to human form, rushing to where Lyra lay in her wolf shape, hands gentle despite the violence he'd just unleashed. "Shift back, little mate. Let me see how bad it is." She tried, but didn't know how. The wolf had come in response to desperate need. Releasing control was a different skill entirely. "It's okay," Caspian soothed, though his hands shook as they touched her fur. "Take your time. I've got you. You're safe now." Around them, pack members emerged from hiding, staring at their bloody king and the small gray wolf he cradled like she was made of spun glass. Staring at the proof that their queen wasn't wolfless after all, just late blooming, just different, just enough. The shift back happened gradually, painfully, leaving Lyra naked and bleeding in Caspian's arms. He wrapped her in his shirt, pressing fabric against the wounds in her shoulder. "You shifted," he breathed, wonder cutting through the fear. "You fought. You protected them." "I had to." Her voice came out rough. "I couldn't just hide. Not anymore." "You're the bravest person I've ever met." He lifted her carefully, nodding at his beta who'd just arrived with backup forces. "Clear the rest of the rogues. Execute any who don't surrender immediately. This ends now." As he carried her back through the mansion, Lyra saw the cost of Garrett's attack. Injured wolves being treated by healers, families checking on loved ones, the acrid smell of blood and fear hanging heavy. "How many did we lose?" she asked quietly. 7 confirmed dead, 2 more critical. Caspian's jaw clenched. Too many. All because I wasn't fast enough, wasn't careful enough. All because Barrett was a monster who couldn't accept consequences. She touched his face, forcing him to look at her. "This isn't your fault. It's his. And it's over. We survived." "You could have died." The words came out strangled. "If you hadn't shifted, if that door had been just a little stronger, and I'd been just a little slower." "But I did, and you weren't. We're here. We're alive." She rested her forehead against his. "And I finally met my wolf. That's everything." His laugh was wet, almost broken. "Trust you to find the silver lining in attempted murder." "I learned from the best." The healer patched her up with experienced efficiency, declaring the wounds painful but not life-threatening. Caspian refused to leave her side, holding her hand through the stitches, murmuring reassurances when she flinched. "I want to address the pack," Lyra said, once she could stand again. "Now, while they're all gathered." "You need to rest." "I need them to see me standing." She met his eyes steadily. "I need them to see that I fought, that I survived, that I'm not just some helpless victim they have to protect. I'm their queen, Caspian. Let me act like it." Pride blazed across his features. "As you wish, my queen." He helped her dress in simple clothes that wouldn't irritate her wounds, then escorted her to the pack square where hundreds had gathered in the aftermath of the attack. A makeshift platform had been erected, bodies already removed out of respect. The crowd hushed when they saw her. This small, scarred woman leaning on their Alpha King's arm, bandages visible beneath her shirt, but standing, present, unbroken. Caspian started to speak, but Lyra touched his arm. "Let me." He yielded the platform, staying close enough to catch her if she fell, but far enough to make clear this was her moment. Lyra looked out over the assembled pack. These wolves who'd ignored her suffering, who'd resented her elevation, who'd questioned her worth. And she spoke not with the voice of a victim, but with the voice of someone who'd earned the right to lead. "Today, rogues attacked our home because one of their leaders wanted revenge on me. 7 of our people died protecting others. 2 more are fighting for their lives in the hospital. And I know some of you are angry. Some of you think this is my fault. That if your king had chosen a different mate, someone stronger, someone more powerful, someone who fit your expectations, this wouldn't have happened. She paused, letting the truth of it settle. You might be right. If Caspian had chosen differently, Garrett might not have attacked. But he also might have. Because the real problem wasn't who your king loves. The real problem was that this pack allowed cruelty to flourish. You all knew what Garrett and his friends were doing to me. You all knew, and you stayed silent. And that silence created a culture where violence was acceptable as long as the victim seemed unimportant. Uncomfortable shifting in the crowd. Some had the grace to look ashamed. Today, I shifted for the first time in my life. I fought to protect the people hiding in that safe room, including some who've never been kind to me. I fought because that's what pack means. Not bloodlines or power levels or whether someone fits your idea of worthy. Pack means we protect each other, all of us, the strong and the weak, the alpha and the omega, the perfect and the different. Her voice grew stronger, carrying across the square. I didn't choose to be your king's mate. The moon goddess made that choice. But I am choosing to be your queen. And I'm telling you right now, if you can't accept a leader who was once powerless, who knows what it means to suffer, who will fight for the forgotten and the dismissed, then you should leave. This pack is changing. We're becoming something better, something kinder. And if that doesn't appeal to you, the borders are open. Silence stretched, fragile and tense. Then, from the back of the crowd, an elderly female stepped forward, one of the original pack members, someone who'd lived through 3 Alpha dynasties. I knew your mother, she said, looking at Caspian but speaking to everyone. She was human, powerless by your standards, and she was the best queen this pack ever had, because she understood suffering. Because she led with compassion instead of just strength. Her gaze shifted to Lyra. I see her in you, girl, and I'm proud to call you my queen. She dropped to one knee in formal submission. Another wolf joined her, then another, then dozens, hundreds, until the entire pack square was a sea of kneeling forms. Even those who'd been hostile just moments before. Not because they were forced, but because they'd seen her fight, seen her stand, seen her choose them despite every reason to walk away. Caspian's hand found hers, squeezed gently. Still think they won't accept you? Lyra's throat was too tight for words. She'd spent 3 years invisible. And now an entire pack was seeing her, truly seeing her for the first time. Rise, she said, voice rough with emotion. All of you, rise. We don't kneel to each other in this pack. We stand together. We protect together. We heal together. The crowd stood as one, and the sound that erupted was pure pack joy. Howls and cheers mixing into something ancient and right. Later, after the injured had been tended and the dead had been honored, and the pack had started the slow work of rebuilding, Lyra found herself back in the library, curled in the window seat with Caspian's head in her lap. Your mother would be proud of you, she said softly, running fingers through his dark hair. Of both of us. She'd probably lecture me about not noticing you sooner. His eyes were closed, face finally relaxed. Tell me I inherited my father's emotional intelligence, which is to say, none. Lyra smiled. But you found me eventually. That's what matters. I almost lost you today. His hand found her hip, gripping like she might vanish. When I heard you were trapped, when I couldn't get to you fast enough. But you did. And I learned I can protect myself, that I'm not helpless anymore. He opened his eyes, silver meeting hazel. You were never helpless. You just needed to believe in yourself as much as I believe in you. Flatterer, truth teller. He sat up, cupped her face. You're magnificent, Lyra. Absolutely magnificent. And I'm the luckiest bastard alive that the moon goddess gave me you. She kissed him, slow and sweet and full of promise. Think the pack will be okay? I think they'll be better than okay. He pulled her into his lap, wrapped arms around her waist. They have a queen who'll fight for them, who'll see them, who'll make sure no one else suffers alone the way you did. No pressure then. His laugh rumbled through his chest. You can handle it. You can handle anything. Lyra looked out the window at the pack land spreading below. These territories that had once felt like a prison, but now felt like possibility, like home. What happened to Garrett's father? She asked. Beta Simmons? Resigned. Said he couldn't serve a king who'd execute his son. Caspian's voice was neutral. I accepted immediately. Promoted Marcus's brother to Beta. He's young, but he's loyal. And he was one of the first to kneel to you today. You're rebuilding everything. We're rebuilding everything, he corrected. You and me. Creating the pack we both wish we'd had all along. She leaned back against him, let his warmth seep into her bones. Tell me about the future, what it looks like in your head. In my head, he was quiet for a moment, thoughtful. I see a pack where power doesn't equal worth, where the strong protect the weak, not because they have to, but because they want to, where differences are celebrated instead of punished, where a wolfless girl can become queen not despite who she is, but because of it. That's a beautiful vision. Then let's make it real. He kissed the top of her head. Let's show the world what pack can mean, what love can build, what two broken people can create when they choose each other over and over and over again. Lyra thought about the girl she'd been 3 weeks ago, beaten, alone, convinced she'd die unnoticed in a dirty alley. Thought about the wolf sleeping inside her, the mate holding her close, the pack that had finally seen her. I think we already started, she whispered. Outside, the moon rose full and bright, bathing the territory in silver light. And in the distance, wolves began to howl, not in mourning or rage, but in celebration, in recognition of their new queen, their savage king, and the love story that had rewritten everything they thought they knew about strength and survival and what it truly meant to be pack. Lyra closed her eyes and howled with them, her voice joining the chorus. Finally, finally, belonging. The Alpha King smiled against her hair and held her tighter, his own howl merging with hers, two souls singing one song beneath the moon that had brought them together. And somewhere in the space between heartbeats, the moon goddess smiled, satisfied with the chaos and beauty and perfect imperfection of the bond she'd forged. Because the best love stories weren't about perfection. They were about two people choosing to see each other, to fight for each other, to build something new from the ashes of everything that had tried to break them. And this love story, born in blood and shadow and impossible odds, was only just beginning.